Hello and welcome back to LBG Reviews. Please be sure to like and subscribe. No. Please be sure to like and subscribe because this week we're going to the stars. Starfield is a game that, on paper, it both sounds awesome, but also sounds confusing as all heck. Because Starfield basically takes some aspects of Skyrim and some aspects of Fallout and mixes them together. What do I mean by that? So, if you're someone who's played Skyrim, or as the official full title is called, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, then you're familiar with dragon shouts. Basically, magical abilities where you take, because your character has the soul of a dragon within their human body, you are able to use the powers of dragons to control the environment around you. Sadly, Starfield has something similar in powers that you gain access to relatively early on in the game. Sadly, Starfield does not put as much thought into explaining them lore-wise. Starfield doesn't really have much explanation for a decent amount of the craziness that happens in the game. Usually Bethesda games are well known for them offering a blank slate of a character for you to work with. The same is relatively true with Starfield. Now, yeah, you do dip more into your character's backstory, at least in details-wise, when choosing some of your starting perks. Like, as an example, there's the kid stuff perk, where basically you're able to go back and visit your parents in the city of New Atlantis, and your parents will periodically leave letters for you at your base of operations as you... Because in the game you are a part of a group called Constellation, which is a group of explorers that go out into the stars to seek answers for any number of questions and mysteries. The game's main focus, though, is on artifacts. These artifacts are found throughout star systems, and each time you find one and bring them back to the others, they seem to build an unusual-looking structure. To obtain the artifacts, you do a wide variety of quests, whether it's tracking down a volunteer soldier who had stumbled across one and then was trying to pawn it off to somebody. Or you do like a black market dealing where you've arranged a meeting with someone who has an artifact and basically you rig the dealing in your favor so you pay less. Or there's an artifact that you find because of an old family story that's been passed down through the generations. And just a bunch of other things that you have to do in order to gather up all of the artifact pieces. Each time that someone first touches one of these artifacts, they receive a vision. The more artifacts you acquire, the longer and more in detail these visions become. But with each of the artifacts, which there are 24 in total, there are also other things out in the galaxy. At some point in the game, one of the members of Constellation, named Vladimir, mentions that the space station he is on, called the Eye, also picks up signals that are identical to the artifacts that Constellation currently has in their possession, but are much larger in scale than the artifacts. Initially, they had written these off as freak anomalies unrelated to the artifacts. But the more artifacts that Constellation collects, the more apparent that it becomes that these larger signals are connected to the artifacts. So he sends you to one of them. It winds up being a temple where, as you float around and interact with dancing lights in the room, eventually a pair of rings that has been spinning in the center of the room spins really, really fast as the central ring lights up. And then once the ring stops spinning and you float through the central ring, your character is imbued with an alien power. The first alien power you get in the game is an anti-gravity field where within a short range, characters and objects around you will float upwards for a little bit. And basically, as you go through the game, you can acquire an alien power for each of the artifacts. And the game's story centers around what do these artifacts do, what are they building when you bring them together, who made them, all sorts of questions about them. Now, to not dip into spoiler territory, I'm going to leave this story synopsis there. Starfield had and has a lot of controversy about it. Some people are very upset about how the game handles itself, about how there aren't a ton of planets with life on them, like you've got in like games like No Man's Sky. A lot of people hate how it's kind of a mishmash between Fallout and Skyrim. Some people just think the story's bland. Honestly, I disagree, and there was also some controversy right before the game released, talking about how a lot of the text in the game seems really, really small and some other accessibility issues. Funnily enough, right when Starfield released was when I was starting off my channel. Or actually, no, correction. Right before Starfield's release is when I was just starting off on my channel. Back then, I had seen the news about how people were concerned about how small some of the text was in the game. And I was like, ooh, I could talk about this. But then other projects kind of got shoved into the mix, and then here we are now, where I'm now finally talking about Starfield. So, what kinds of accessibility features does the game have? Well, the game's accessibility features are kind of a mishmash, impacting both camera FOV, which is field of view, as well as impacting as well as the sensitivity of your controls, then also toggling or versus holding of various buttons. So as an example, holding down a button to sprint or toggling it on and off. Toggling on and off, aiming down your weapon's sights, and other things like that. And the main one that really benefited me, and I know I turned it on during my gameplay, was enlarging of UI text. Sadly, this does not seem to apply to subtitles from what I saw, but it does apply to interface usage, so getting to read what quest descriptions say, because honestly a lot of the times as I was playing through the game the first time, for the most part I really didn't read the quest descriptions all that much because they were pretty small, I will admit that. And so basically I took advantage of one other feature that Starfield has, which is that because of the 10,000 plus planets you can visit in Starfield, the game has a feature that allows you to open up your mission log, click on a mission, and then just have it plan out route of travel for you to just fast travel straight to it rather than having to look at where you're going in the mission log, then trying to find that on the map, and then plotting your course on your own like you would with Skyrim. Or like plotting it out and then just having you follow a certain pathway. It does a lot of that math for you. And so that's very nice. And so because of that, I would use that feature a lot of the times rather than just reading mission descriptions. And so having that bigger text is definitely very helpful. But I do wish that they had other settings in the accessibility settings. Like as an example, I don't know if it is in the settings of the game, but more of an aim assist feature would be nice. Because as I'm sure you've noticed while watching my gameplay, my aim is fairly shoddy. Like if I'm really focused, I can really dial in on shooting at who I need to shoot. But sometimes it can be a little shoddy for sure. What else? But beyond that, like, that was really all that I had to say about the accessibility features of Starfield. Now, what do I think about the game, though? The game is fun. A lot of people think that it's just like Fallout in space, or it's Skyrim in space. It's kind of both of those things, and I kind of enjoy that. It feels unique enough to me. A lot of people disagree, but that's okay. That is the fun of having your own opinion. Yeah, you can have it up here. But that's all I've got to say about Starfield. Tune in next week when we talk about Pine Hearts, a fun little Metroidvania game where you play as a guy wanting to climb a mountain and remembering his time with his father as a kid. It's a game I had a lot of fun with. The accessibility features are really cool. And just a game I want to talk about. See you guys then. Bye.